I remember the moment Aaron leaned across my kitchen table and told me, without blinking, that I didn't need to worry about my own decisions anymore. He said it like he was doing me a favor, like my life was something he could manage better than I ever had. If you've ever had someone in your own family push past the boundaries you thought were sacred, tell me your story in the comments. The trouble began on a Tuesday when I walked into the CVS on Powell BLFD with a strange heaviness spreading across my chest. My blood pressure meds should have been ready, but the pharmacist gave me a look that made the back of my neck tighten. He tapped a few keys, then asked, "Did you request a cancellation last week?" I leaned on the counter. "No. Why would I cancel something I take every day?" The man hesitated before turning the screen toward me. A request had been submitted under my name using a verified number. The last digits were familiar. Too familiar. That's my son-in-law's phone came out before I could stop it. He printed the system log and slid the paper across. It came from that number. And this wasn't the only access. Someone viewed your refill history a few times this month. The floor felt unsteady, though I stayed still long enough to ask a few plain questions. When was the first access? Does the system require a password or just confirmation? Can you see if any other changes were made? He answered each one with caution, probably sensing something was wrong. His eyes kept drifting to my face, maybe checking whether I understood the weight of what I was hearing. I thanked him and asked for a new fill. He nodded and stepped away. My legs carried me to the far corner of the parking lot where I stood still long enough for the dizziness to pass. A few days without medication had taken a toll, and now I understood why I'd been feeling off. A memory surfaced the afternoon Aaron asked for my insurance card, saying he wanted to help set up auto refill. Another memory followed him holding my phone, saying he needed to fix the settings. Each moment had seemed small at the time, easy to ignore for the sake of peace. Maybe that was my mistake. Before pulling out of the parking lot, I checked the log again. The last access matched a day Aaron had stopped by the house saying he was picking up tools he'd borrowed. He had stayed longer than necessary, long enough to look around. The drive back to Woodstock felt longer than usual. Skipping several days of blood pressure medication left my body working harder than it should, and the discovery at CVS kept circling my thoughts, hitting from different angles. Nothing added up in a way that made sense, yet the pattern was too deliberate to dismiss. Dinner at Lacey's place had already been planned, so I went. Showing up late would only stir up more questions. The moment I walked through the door, Aaron's voice carried across the room. "There he is," he said, as if announcing something amusing. Dad forgot to refill his meds again. The word "forgot" hung in the air long enough for everyone to absorb it. Lacey's fork paused halfway to her plate. "Dad, is that true?" Her eyes narrowed with concern, not accusation, but the effect worked just the same. I pulled out a chair and sat. Let's just eat was all I offered. Aaron continued the story without missing a beat. "I checked the system last week because he mentioned feeling tired. The refill wasn't processed at all. It's not safe for him to manage these things alone." The room shifted. Not dramatically, but enough that I felt the weight of every glance. One niece whispered something to her husband. Another relative who'd dropped by for dinner said softly that older adults often get overwhelmed with too many passwords. Lacey reached for my arm. "Dad, you could have told me. We can help you. You don't have to keep everything to yourself." Conversations around the table carried on, but each comment denied me something small: competence, clarity, adulthood. Each person meant well, yet their concern came wrapped in assumptions. A few nods drifted toward Aaron, accepting his version of events as the complete truth. He leaned back in his chair, hands folded behind his head, satisfied. "You know what I think? We set up full access on my end. I can handle his online account so nothing slips through." The suggestion landed like a stone. Several heads bobbed in agreement. Someone murmured, "That's probably best. He's got a lot on his plate." Another added, "Could prevent an emergency." No one asked me a direct question. They spoke as though I wasn't there, as if my silence confirmed everything. Lacey squeezed my hand. "We just want you safe." She meant it. Her intentions were kind, which was the cruelest part. A tide had formed around me without anyone realizing it. One mistaken assumption replaced the next, all flowing from a single lie told casually over dinner. After the meal, conversations drifted toward weekend plans. I excused myself early. The house felt smaller than usual as I made my way through the living room. Aaron followed me to the door with a smile that didn't belong on the face of an innocent man. "We'll get you sorted, Mike. Don't stress about the tech stuff. I've got it handled." He clapped my shoulder on his way back to the table. Outside, the evening air pressed against my skin in a way that made each breath feel heavier. Walking toward my truck took more concentration than usual. My pulse throbbed behind my eyes, the lack of medication catching up with me again. Nora Valdez stood on her porch across the street. She must have heard my engine earlier because she waved me over. "You look pale," she said the moment I stepped onto her walkway. "Did you skip your meds?" Her tone wasn't scolding. It was the voice of someone who'd seen too many people ignore warning signs until it was too late. "My prescription was canceled," I answered, keeping it simple. "Canceled." Her eyebrows arched. "By who? I'm still figuring that out." Her years in nursing showed in the way she cut straight to the essentials. "Did you check your online account? Logs, notification settings?" Someone must have touched something. Her questions pierced through the fog, clouding my thoughts. She didn't treat me like a man slipping mentally. She treated me like someone whose information had been tampered with. A victim of interference, not incompetence. "That's not a small mistake, Michael," she said. "Someone messing with your medication is dangerous. You need to look deeper." The firmness in her voice anchored me. Something about her certainty helped pull the pieces into a sharper shape. If she reacted this strongly to the words "canceled prescription," then my instinct wasn't overblown. Something serious was happening behind my back. She studied me one more time. "Go home and check everything. Don't shrug this off." Thanked her and promised I would. The walk back to my house steadied me, not because anything felt resolved, but because the path ahead had become clearer. The pressure in my skull throbbed again, reminding me that the missing medication wasn't just a financial issue. It was a threat to my health. The pharmacy portal took longer than usual to load, as if the system hesitated before revealing what waited for me. A list of recent activity appeared, and several entries sat there with dates that didn't match anything I remembered. Someone had checked my refill status multiple times. Someone had browsed my medication history at odd hours. A creeping unease worked its way through my shoulders while I scrolled. Further down the page, an order adjustment caught my attention. A change of address request. It listed a street nowhere near where I lived. I reread it, convinced my eyes were playing tricks on me. The timestamp landed on a day when Aaron had visited the house to help set up a new router. At least that's what he told Lacey. My mind scrambled to arrange the details in order, yet each attempt left more gaps. A sickening thought pushed forward. Maybe I had clicked something without realizing it. Maybe I had misread a prompt or hit the wrong button. Doubt began clawing at me. Had I mixed up the refill date? Had I misremembered the login changes? I forced myself to stop and review the entries one more time. The pattern was too precise. My hands hovered over the keyboard as another possibility surfaced, one I didn't want to consider but couldn't dismiss. Someone had built a path through my information, and that path had widened while I wasn't paying attention. A notification chimed on my phone. "If you need help with the account, let Aaron handle it." No name attached, just the message. No explanation. It arrived seconds after I'd reviewed activity logs connected to his phone number. The coincidence was too sharp to ignore. A cold ripple spread through me, not fear exactly, more the realization that lines were being crossed with confidence. Toggling to my device settings, I checked the network configuration Aaron claimed he'd adjusted. Several sections were locked behind a password I hadn't created. A few advanced options were inaccessible altogether, marked with a prompt that read, "Administrative access required." He must have configured the device in a way that allowed him to return whenever he pleased. Control was slipping from me in small, calculated increments. Retracing my steps didn't help much. The cursor blinked on the screen, waiting for my next move. There was no point confronting anyone without proof. No one in that dinner room would believe anything except the story Aaron already crafted. People trust the narrative that makes simple sense, not the one that requires uncomfortable truths. I steadied my breathing and opened a fresh folder. Screenshots captured each irregularity. A separate document held the dates, timestamps, and questionable entries. Notes went into an old notebook I kept for home projects. The handwriting looked harsher than usual, slanted and impatient. Another string of notifications buzzed on the phone. I turned it face down on the table. A call arrived next Howard's number. He rarely called at night unless something mattered. "Mike, you free?" he asked. "Depends. I'm grabbing dinner at that Mexican place off Foster. You should come. You sound worn out." He knew me well enough to hear tension even when I tried to hide it. Howard was blunt, former crew supervisor from my years working electrical outages across job sites. A man who relied on facts rather than impressions. "I'll meet you there," I answered. My phone vibrated again before I reached the truck. An email notification, this time the preview showing only the words, "Regarding your account." The email alert blinked again as I sat in the truck. Curiosity pulled my hand toward the phone, despite the tension running through my body. A withdrawal notice from my retirement account sat at the top, flagged as completed. The attached document displayed an electronic signature, one that looked nothing like mine. The strokes were too smooth, too practiced, as if someone signed it with confidence, knowing I wouldn't check. A dull pressure built in my chest. Not panic, not shock. More like recognition that a door had been kicked open. The earlier meddling had been covert. This was different. This was bold. Traffic moved slowly toward Foster Road. Each red light gave me another chance to review the document in my lap. The withdrawal wasn't small. Enough money to matter. Enough to raise questions. Enough to prove intent. By the time I pulled into the lot of the Mexican restaurant, my jaw felt stiff from holding everything in. Howard waved me over the moment I stepped through the door. "Mike, over here." He could read a man's expression the way other people read a map. His eyes landed on the papers in my hand before I even sat down. "What's that?" he asked. "A retirement withdrawal I didn't make." He took the pages, scanning them faster than I expected for a man his age. His face hardened. "This isn't a mistake. I know. This is theft, plain and simple." He didn't lower his voice. He didn't soften the word. The simplicity of it hit me harder than the email had. Too many years of avoiding conflict had left me slow to call wrongdoing what it was. But Howard never danced around truth. I kept thinking maybe I misremembered something I said. Maybe I clicked the wrong thing. Maybe. "No," he cut in. "Don't do that. You didn't forget a damn thing. Someone got into your account." Another notification pinged on my phone before the waitress dropped off chips. Lacey's name appeared, FaceTime call. The timing set off alarm bells. I declined the first call. The second one came immediately, then a third. Howard motioned with his chin. "Answer so we know what's going on." The screen lit up with Lacey's face, and behind her, the wall of her living room. "Dad, are you spending from your retirement?" she asked, worry rising in her voice. "Aaron said you might be withdrawing money without keeping track." My grip tightened around the phone. "What exactly did he tell you? That you've been stressed, maybe not paying attention," and he noticed unusual activity. Howard muttered something sharp under his breath. "No," I replied. "I didn't withdraw anything." Lacey's face fell. Confusion took over her features, and worry twisted into something like fear. Not fear of me, but fear of the idea that her father might truly be losing control. Behind her, Aaron's shadow passed by. He spoke loudly enough for the microphone to catch it. "Tell him we can help. He doesn't need to manage this stuff alone." That sentence pricked something deep, the same tone he used at dinner, the same assumption he spread through the family. Each word dragged my competence, my autonomy, and my dignity down another inch. "I'll call you later," I said, ending the conversation before the frustration rising in me turned into something less controlled. Setting the phone down, I turned back to Howard, who leaned his arms on the table. "This isn't just family meddling anymore," he said. "This is a violation." He gave the papers another glance. "You need to take action now. Elder financial abuse is a crime. There are laws for this." The world around us buzzed with the usual restaurant sounds, orders being taken, forks, tapping plates, someone laughing too loudly at the bar. None of it reached me fully. The ground under my life had shifted. What happened wasn't confined to some household misunderstanding. Someone had reached straight into the future I'd spent years building. Walking out of the restaurant, my posture felt different. Shoulders squared, steps deliberate. Not from anger, something colder than anger. Certainty. Howard followed me out and grabbed my elbow before I got into the truck. "Go to the bank," he said. "Tonight if they're still open. First thing in the morning if not. Bring everything. Make them verify the signature." His grip was firm, not forceful. The kind of grip men use when they want to make sure another man hears the truth, without misinterpreting it. "I will." Leaving the parking lot, the Wells Fargo branch near the intersection stood only a block away. A few lights still glowed inside. I parked, took the folder from the passenger seat, and walked toward the entrance with a steady pace, knowing exactly what needed to happen next. The branch lobby was nearly empty when I walked in. A young banker named Ellis greeted me and guided me to his desk. He listened without interrupting as I laid out what had happened. When I passed him the withdrawal notice, he pulled up my profile and compared the electronic signature to the ones on file. His eyebrows rose. "This isn't yours," he said. "No," I answered. "It's not." He clicked through the access history, his face tightening. "The transaction came from a device that's never been registered to your account. Different IP address, different location." A second banker overhearing us stepped over. "Are you Michael Harland?" "Yes." "We received a phone call last week from someone asking about financial power of attorney for you. They said they were preparing paperwork, but never followed through." Ellis shot the other banker a look. "You didn't mention that earlier." "I forgot until I heard his name," the man replied, turning back to me. They asked several questions about what authority could be transferred. The words landed heavier than I expected. Not only had someone taken money, they were trying to legitimize their control. Clean up the trail before leaving deeper footprints. Ellis printed every piece of data he could: IP logs, signature comparisons, timestamps, inquiry notes. Each page further confirmed what I already knew, but hadn't fully accepted. Someone had started building a case that I was no longer capable of managing my own finances. I thanked them and stepped back onto the sidewalk. Traffic hummed along the street while I stood there, not lost, just processing. A phrase from an old co-worker drifted through my mind. "A small fire becomes a house fire when no one puts a foot on it early. If I didn't step in now, they'd take more." That realization settled into me with surprising calm. The phone buzzed again. Nora's name appeared. "You made it home?" she asked. "No. I'm at the bank. Everything all right?" They confirmed the signature was fake, and someone tried to ask about financial authority. She breathed out sharply. "Michael, that's elder law territory. You shouldn't handle this alone. Find someone who deals with this professionally." Her voice carried a clarity I'd needed. Not sympathy truth. "This isn't a misunderstanding," she added. "This is intentional." A pause stretched between us. "You need a lawyer," she finished. 2 more notifications arrived before I could respond. Messages from Lacey. "Dad, can we talk? Aaron thinks we should evaluate your memory. Please don't get upset." Another one followed seconds later. "He's just worried about you. We all are." The shift was unmistakable. Aaron had started planting seeds, crafting a new story, the aging father who couldn't keep track of his own accounts. a man slipping, a man who needed help. And if people believed that version, then everything he'd done would look like care not violation. Standing there with the bank's documents pressed under my arm, I understood something with painful clarity. Staying silent would mean surrender. Going along with the harmony everyone hoped for would cost me everything I'd worked for. A fragile peace wasn't worth that price. My thumb hovered over Lacey's messages, not replying. There was nothing useful to say when the ground around her had been shaped by someone else. The decision formed quietly. I wasn't going to let this continue. The moment required more than caution, it required action. I walked to my truck and set the documents on the passenger seat. The folder rested there like a small stack of truths no one could argue with. Years ago, a supervisor once told me during a crisis outage, "When you let fear decide, you lose twice." The line resurfaced, now steadying my focus. Scrolling through my contacts, I found the number for a law office someone had recommended once, Elder Financial Justice Group, downtown Portland. Their card had stayed in my wallet for years, a thing I never thought I'd need. The engine hummed under me as I sat still weighing the next step, though the outcome had been decided the moment I saw the forged signature. The receptionist at Elder Financial Justice directed me to a conference room, a simple space with a round table and a stack of legal pads. A few minutes later, Attorney Mills entered, introduced herself, and asked for everything I had. There was no dramatics in her tone, just a steadiness that made it easier to breathe. Once the documents were spread out, she began reviewing them one by one. "The pharmacy entries alone raise concern," she said. "But the retirement withdrawal, the signature mismatch, and the attempted inquiry about financial authority. That's a pattern." She tapped her pen against the fake signature. "This is enough to initiate a federal investigation into Elder financial fraud. You've done the right thing coming here." Something in her certainty settled the turmoil that had been churning in me for days. I listened as she laid out the steps: freeze unauthorized access, revoke any digital permissions Aaron had installed, reset every credential tied to my accounts, and schedule a full identity verification through the bank and insurance providers. "We'll also document each irregularity," she continued. "Do not delete anything. Screenshots, device logs, timestamps, preserve them exactly as they appear." Her list kept growing, but instead of overwhelming me, it gave shape to what had been chaos. She added, "This isn't about family conflict. This is a legal matter, and it needs to be treated with that seriousness." A long exhale left my chest. Something colder than anger replaced the earlier confusion. A sort of strategic calm. She noticed the shift. "That's what I'm here for," she said. "We make sure the truth is recorded properly." After an hour, everything had been reviewed, organized, and copied. She slid a packet across the table. "These are your next steps. Follow them today if you can. Especially revoking device access. Whoever has been manipulating your accounts may escalate." I thanked her and stepped out of the building. The air felt different, not lighter but sharper the way a man feels just before tightening a bolt on a machine he knows could fail if ignored. Howard stood near my truck holding something small in his hand. "You're done for now." "Good. Take this." He gave me a USB drive sealed in a protective case. "This one can't be accessed remotely. Put everything on it. Don't leave it on your laptop. And don't trust cloud storage." Typical Howard, always 3 steps ahead when danger involved information instead of machinery. We talked briefly before he headed back to his car. I watched him go, then slid into the driver's seat. Before starting the engine, the phone lit up with a cluster of texts from Lacey. "Dad, Aaron thinks maybe you're stressed and misinterpreting things. He's trying to help. Why are you being so distant? He said he tried to fix your accounts, but you're shutting him out." The manipulation in those lines didn't even try to hide itself. Aaron had been busy rewriting the story again, painting himself as the helpful one, turning my caution into paranoia. Another vibration followed, an email requesting a password reset for my medical portal. Not one I initiated. Moments later, a text from an unknown number arrived. "Stop making trouble. This is family business." Something about that phrasing made my jaw lock. Whoever sent it assumed I would back down. The USB case rested on my knee. I transferred the new messages, the reset request, and the anonymous warning into a folder marked Evidence 2. Everything got copied safely. No dramatic outburst came. No desire to call anyone and demand explanations. The noise that had filled my head earlier faded, replaced by a more focused resolve. A man can tolerate a lot when he thinks the damage starts and ends with inconvenience. But when the harm becomes deliberate, strategic, and aimed at stripping away autonomy, something shifts. A line snapped in a way that didn't make sound, but could be felt. The last file finished transferring. I clicked the drive safely out and set it beside the packet the attorney had given me. The engine started smoothly. My hands rested on the steering wheel, steady-ready, already thinking through the next move as the day turned toward evening, and the next phase waited just ahead. A notification from my insurance provider flashed across my phone late in the afternoon. The subject line mentioned beneficiary change request, something I hadn't touched in years. Opening the email, I saw a pending update. Someone had tried to replace my listed beneficiary with a name that matched Aaron's last name and the home address he shared with Lacey. The air around me felt denser for a moment. This wasn't a mistaken refill or a misclicked button. It was the most direct attempt yet to redirect my future toward someone else's pockets. Another string of messages followed almost immediately. "My niece, Uncle Mike. Why would you give everything to charity? A cousin, is everything all right? People are saying you're making strange decisions. Someone else call me. We're worried." The lie moved through the family, as if rehearsed. According to their messages, I had apparently announced plans to donate all remaining assets to a non-profit, abandoning any financial legacy for my daughter or extended relatives. The rumor carried a tone of betrayal, not just confusion. Aaron's fingerprints were all over the narrative. I scrolled through the texts, noticing similar phrasing from different people, as if they'd all heard the same script. A final message came from Lacey. "Dad, please don't make major decisions without talking to us. Aaron says you might not be thinking clearly." That line hit harder than any withdrawal, any forged signature. My own daughter doubted my clarity, not because she saw signs of decline, but because Aaron fed her that story day after day. Watching her words on the screen, I felt something inside me shift. Grief mixed with resolve, a blend sharp enough to cut through the last pieces of hesitation. Before I replied, a new email appeared, this time from Aaron, copied to the entire family. "Everyone, I'm concerned about Michael's cognitive state. For his safety, I believe financial supervision is necessary. He's making rash choices and mismanaging accounts. We need to step in." He didn't even try to soften it. He was building a case to strip me of decision-making power entirely. If even half the family believed him, the damage would be enormous. Lacey called a few minutes later. "Dad, can we meet tonight? The family wants to talk." Her voice trembled, not with anger, fear. Fear that her father was slipping away from her. That fear didn't come from her own observations. It came from him. "I'll be there," I told her. When the call ended, my hand went to the glove compartment where the USB drive rested. The car seat creaked as I leaned forward and pulled it out. One click opened the folders. Pharmacy logs, financial withdrawals, unauthorized device access, forged signatures, password reset attempts, beneficiary changes. Every act laid out in clear order. Each piece time-stamped, archived, undeniable. Seeing it all together hardened my focus. This wasn't a family disagreement spiraling out of control. It was a structure of deceit built step by step, while I kept giving the benefit of the doubt. Lacey's message about the family meeting included the address, my sister-in-law's house. I drove there without turning on the radio. Thoughts aligned cleanly, no scattered doubt or confusion left. The evidence had taken each loose thread and tied it to the truth. Their voices carried out while I approached the porch, soft, worried, weighed down by everything Aaron had planted. When I walked in, they all turned. Some stared with sympathy, others with wariness. Lacey moved toward me first. "Dad, we just want to understand what's going on." Aaron positioned himself behind her, hands on her shoulders, as if guiding her. His expression stayed neutral, too neutral, the kind that waits for someone's collapse. I placed the folder and USB drive on the coffee table. "Before we talk, look at this." Aaron stepped forward quickly. "There's no need to get defensive. Sit down," I said. He froze. The family watched, uncertain. Lacey looked between us. I opened the folder, sliding each document into view. The pharmacy cancellation delivery address, change device, access logs, retirement withdrawal, forged signature beneficiary attempt. Page after page. Lacey's breath hitched when she saw her home address listed under the attempted beneficiary change. Howard, who had arrived separately and stood quietly by the doorway, cleared his throat. "Everything here is verified," he told them. Aaron's face drained of color. He tried to speak, but the words came out thin. "This is being misinterpreted." I was trying to help. My phone buzzed. Attorney Mills's number displayed on the screen. I hit speaker. "Mr. Harland," she said, "please inform Aaron Cole he is required to appear for a formal interview regarding elder financial fraud. We've sent him the details." A silence spread across the room, not peaceful, but stunned. Aaron's mouth opened, then shut again. His gaze darted around the room, searching for someone to defend him. No one moved. I gathered the documents into a neat stack. "These are mine," I said simply. No anger, no raised voice, just truth reclaiming its ground. Behind me, the room erupted questions, disbelief, accusations thrown at Aaron from people who an hour earlier believed his every word. But none of the noise pulled me in. My attention was on the folder in my hands, the proof I had collected piece by piece, the proof that finally spoke louder than his lies. The next morning, I walked into the State Financial Protection Office with the folder under my arm. A clerk guided me through each step, revoking any existing powers of attorney, adding senior-level security layers, separating my accounts into restricted categories. Every form carried its own weight, but none felt heavy. Each signature restored something that had been slipping away. A supervisor reviewed the file and nodded. "You've done the right thing," she said. "We'll flag all attempts to access your accounts going forward." Hearing that, a part of me loosened. Not relief, more like the return of something that had gone missing long before the first withdrawal. Control. When everything was filed, I stepped outside and sat on a bench near the building. The sun hadn't climbed high yet, and the city moved at its usual pace. A thought surfaced, the kind that doesn't announce itself for years. I'd been afraid of losing what little family I had left. After my wife passed, the house felt hollow, and the only thing that kept it from swallowing me was the idea that I still had Lacey. That fear drove me to tolerate too much excuse. Too much swallow too much. Somewhere along the line, being a father turned into being a shield, and being a shield turned into being a convenient target. I drove to Mount Tabor afterward, found a spot where the slope dipped just enough that people tended to walk by without stopping. Sitting there alone, I felt the steadiness that had been missing for months. Not happiness, not triumph, something calmer. A sense of boundary returning to its rightful place. A call came from an unknown number. I let it ring through. A voicemail followed an investigator confirming that Aaron's actions triggered mandatory reporting. His name had been entered into the financial watch list. Any movement on my accounts or any seniors would be examined more closely from now on. My phone vibrated again, this time with Lacey's name. "Dad, I need time," her message read. "Everything happened so fast. I don't know what to think." The words carried confusion, guilt, and heartbreak. None of it was her fault. She'd been steered through the dark by someone she trusted. I typed a brief reply. "Take your time. No lecture. No accusation. No attempt to fix anything. just space something neither of us had allowed before. I stopped by the community tech center and filled out a short form. The old instructor recognized my name. "You thinking about getting back into training?" he asked. "Yeah," I replied. "It's time." His smile came easy. "We'd be glad to have you." That simple exchange grounded me in a way I hadn't expected. A return to something that belonged to me long before any of this started. Back home, I dug out the old radio that had been sitting on a shelf for years. Its casing was worn, but the circuits inside were familiar. My tools spread across the table as I worked through the wiring. A few adjustments, a replacement coil, a fresh fuse. When the radio finally caught a signal, a steady rhythm filled the room, an unbroken line of sound, reliable and sure. I tightened one last screw and let the radio play on while I cleaned up the tools. Nothing symbolic about it. Just a man fixing something that needed attention the same way he had fixed everything else in his life over the past few weeks. The day moved forward without ceremony, and for the first time in a long while it moved on my terms.